Uh, we're very much inspired and learning from what y'all are doing and eager to share these lessons with the rest of the country.
Okay. Um, yeah, and you both spent time in Minnesota, so we Minnesotans don't we kind of don't want to be congratulated too much, and so it feels a little weird to be, to be given accolades for this work, but we certainly appreciate it. And we do feel, I think every single person who lives in the Twin Cities understands, well, has played a part, number one, through all the things, it's delivering groceries or standing outside of mosques or monitoring flights going in and out of Minneapolis. It's just been really incredible. And so I think we all understand too, while um, at the same time that we are living in here in the Twin Cities, something that's really both horrifying and amazing and inspirational. And I think that's what the world is seeing too. So we're happy to share our stories. Maybe happy isn't the right word, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I see Jay in the chat.
Privileged maybe
Yeah.
is the better word. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you as someone who also hates getting attention in any way, I hope everyone can, hold that there's strategic value in praising and appreciating you
That's right.
because it
That's
is
right.
inviting other people to join you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we keep saying, like you all, the two of you do, we're building a big movement here, and it takes telling the stories to help do that. So
Right.
Just to add on to that, one of the most inspiring things that I've seen outside of the Twin Cities was in the 48 hours after Alex Preddy's murder, when a lot of people around the country could have been recoiling at the violence coming from this regime and trying to hide from what was coming for them. Instead, we with the No Kings Coalition held that Eyes on Ice training and had more than 200,000 people join up to be trained on how do you do what Alex Preddy was doing? How do you do what Renee Good was doing? And so just to Leah's point, I think it is really important for us to tell these stories, not just so we can feel good about ourselves being on the right side of history, but so we can show people, no, you too can do this. There are practical ways for you to be part of this. And it's not just theoretical, it's not just academic. People are using this information to productively engage in the fight right now. So okay, we can pray. We've praised you enough if you want, and we can go
And
on to
now we
next
can go
steps.
to
Yeah, we
Q&A.
can go to Q&A next steps.
okay.
Um,
Q&A. Tim, do you have some, or
Yep,
Jordan, do
yep,
you have some questions lined up? I will turn that over to you.
yep. The first question we have here is from Bob, and his question is, what types of actions is Indivisible planning to ensure election integrity in 2026?
Yeah.
the big question.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
let me start first by talking about kind of how we're thinking about the threats to elections and then go through the different buckets of what we're going to be doing. So there's kind of like at the very highest level, I would categorize there as like two, well, there's federal threats, right? Donald Trump tries to change rules, we push back. This is what's going on with the SAVE Act right now. Like this is
Will almost certainly fail. We will
which
almost certainly kill it in the Senate.
we feel a lot of confidence that that will fail. There are any number of shenanigans he might try to pull with executive orders. We'll challenge them in court. We'll raise a ruckus. We'll stop anything from moving through Congress. That's the normal federal playbook that we use. The other two big buckets that we are worried about is essentially red states where there is an important swing federal election, either a swing district or a Senate state, where there is a risk that MAGA local or state elected officials or parts of the judiciary would collude with the Trump administration to essentially either rig the rules, suppress the vote, or manipulate the count on the back end.
So these are places like an Iowa, North Carolina, Georgia, Alaska, Texas, the places with competitive House or Senate elections, but Republicans own the infrastructure and so could be
Exactly.
bullied by Trump or others to mess with it.
Exactly, right. And in those places, what we're going to be doing is basically pre-training and pre-organizing indivisibles in those states and plugging directly in with the state election protection and anti-election sabotage coalitions. In each of those places, there's going to be like a state-based entity that brings together kind of the organizing heft, the legal people, the folks who understand the advocacy politics of the state to collectively be a nerve center, essentially, right? To like say, okay, well, we need, 100 people outside of the clerk's office tomorrow in this place because they're pulling some shenanigans. And that is
And,
where we're gonna,
and just to underline
yeah.
it, this needs to be state by state because every state's election laws are different and the political
Mhm.
realities on the ground are different. So there'll be national messaging and a national way for people to help out from afar, but each of these fights needs to be tailor-made for the actual local constituency and the
Right.
local political realities.
And that's also especially important because our very strong expectation is that by September and October, things are going to be moving very fast in a lot of different places at the same time. And so you absolutely are going to have state leadership that is driving in those states because if everything is filtered through the national bureaucracy, it is not going to be successful. So a lot of our emphasis is in those places is going to be on pre-connecting and pre-training everybody so that there is a powerful functional coalition that indivisibles are plugged into. And, we're not gonna personally do all the legal challenges, but we will get those 100 people outside of the clerk's office to look really, really angry in the moment when we need them, right? So that kind of organizing in the places where there are red elected officials who might interfere with something.
Yep.
The other bucket, which I think is more relevant to a broader set of people around the country, is basically the risk that they try to deploy ICE, CBP, whatever combination of federal forces to suppress the vote via kind of state terror tactics in any number of blue population centers, particularly blue population centers with heavily BIPOC populations, right? So like basically the idea, Bakersfield, California, right? Heavily Latino populations and the swing congressional district sends a bunch of ICE folks in to try to scare basically everybody away from
Well,
voting.
specifically scare Latinos.
Scares Latinos
Yeah.
away from voting, right? Exactly. So that is the second risk that we think is very real. And for that, fundamentally, the playbook that you all have is actually the playbook that is fundamentally going to be what matters in that moment, right? Because it is about making that backfire. It is about having a very, very immediate community response that defines intrusion as wildly unwanted, that cements the sense that the community is coming together to protect each other, and that ensures that like if it happens in one place, there's a massive backlash everywhere else in the country to what is going on, right? And so that's going to be the combination. Yeah, go ahead.
And just to be clear, so just so y'all know how this fight is the narrative fight is going to play out. The SAVE Act will probably die in the Senate, and then they will use the failure to pass the SAVE Act as the argument for why they need ICE terrorizing these communities and patrolling around voting locations. Like that will
Yeah.
be why they say they need to do it. It'll be the excuse that they give.
And they'll also try to pass versions of the SAVE Act in
At
a
the
lot
state
of the
level.
red states.
Yeah, that's right. They're doing it in Florida
Oh, I
already.
can't press that. What?
Yeah. So there's basically
Oh,
going
wait.
to be what I would describe as like whack-a-mole chaos for an extended period of time, in which the most important thing in any place where there's a real risk of shenanigans is that folks are directly connected with their state and local coalition. And we're going to try and we're staffing up with people who are going to help to facilitate that in a bunch of the places that we think are the highest risk. The big thing that I would emphasize for everybody that I think is just important to understand is we're planning for a situation where they throw a Hail Mary pass at some point over the course of the year. And by Hail Mary, I mean like they're stealing all the ballot boxes out of a place. They are, suspending some. They're doing the Insurrection Act in a way that is very obviously designed to obtain their electoral results. They're doing something that is so obviously over the line that there has to be a mass popular backlash that is mobilization, disruption, non-cooperation, all of the skills that we have built through the mass mobilizations, the test that we're going to do with May Day coming up, the work that Minnesota again has done to show that it's possible to actually have a big day in which people simply don't do business as usual. That is the muscles that we have built over that time is essentially the power that we take into that moment. And so I think it's a mistake to think of there as being like one elections protection track and everything else. Basically, all of the power we build is going to have to be deployed at some point this year in service of protecting elections.
Thank you for that. You mentioned a couple times in that the SAVE Act and your confidence that it's not going to pass. One of the questions in here was just to understand what was being done to stop the SAVE Act, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about why you're so confident.
Sure.
I mean, so the thing that's being done now is a combination of outside pressure and internal organizing in Congress. So we've been in touch with House and Senate leadership on the Democratic side, not the Republican side. They don't talk to us about the SAVE Act. They understand that the caucuses in the House and the Senate need to be unified. Fetterman will vote for it, but I don't think we're going to lose any other Democrats on the SAVE Act. There also might be a string of bad amendments that are voted on that are bad but are irrelevant because they will largely fail or entirely fail, and they'll be attached to a bill that will probably also fail. The only way, and the House Dems are basically unified with a few exceptions against it as well because it's become so politically toxic. I would say that this is the SAVE Act fight is akin to something like where HR 9495, the nonprofit killer bill, was towards the end of 2024. If folks remember that fight, Democrats were largely, receptive to that until we started amping up pressure. We polarized around it ideologically, so the Dems did unify against it, and the Republicans unified for it, but they couldn't get it through for that reason. So it died in 2024, and they haven't been able to pass it. And thank God they haven't been able to pass it because Trump absolutely would have used that authority. Indivisible almost certainly would have been targeted among many other groups, immigrant rights groups, and other groups that are organizing. So it's good that they stopped that. But the only way to get the SAVE Act through, therefore, is for them to amend the Senate filibuster. We've been through this fight. Look, in a global sense, I think we should amend the Senate filibuster, and I will absolutely be pushing for that as soon as we have a trifecta again in 2029, because that's what we have to do to get things done. But there does not seem to be appetite for amending the Senate filibuster in the Senate Republican caucus, including among many Republicans that are retiring. So Trump only has limited amounts of sway over those Republicans. I think he could get 30 votes. I think maybe he could get 40 votes. He's not going to get 50 votes unless something drastic changes, right now. So that's why I I know there's a lot of energy around this every single week on what's the plan. We get questions on the SAVE Act. It comes up in a lot of spaces. And I do feel it's part of our responsibility to not like ring the alarm, the sky is falling every time something bad is happening, because then when the sky really is falling, people are going to be like, yeah, you say this all the time. So I don't want to tell people, SAVE Act isn't a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a terrible piece of voter suppression legislation. And I don't want to act like it's definitely dead. There's no way. It's always possible something breaks through, but we are in constant touch with leadership and other members on the Hill, and we've been given no increased raise the alarm signs that they might be moving forward with something.
I want to just hammer on the two reasons why it's really hard to get filibuster reform for either party. One, as Ezra noted, a bunch of Republican senators are retiring, don't particularly like Trump, are not super vulnerable to pressure on this because they're kind of super insulated in a Senate bubble that says this is obviously something you never touch. The other is that if you are a marginal senator and sometimes your vote is the deciding vote on stuff that takes 50 whatever votes, you actually have a real incentive to preserve your ability to be that deciding vote. But in some places, and also you don't actually want to open up the floodgates of stuff where you might have to be the determining vote on stuff that you don't want to vote on. So this was the thing that we saw with Manchin back last year, where he was
unfortunately it's cowardice on both sides, y'all.
It's cowardice on both sides. Yeah, we're counting on their own desire to protect their own the comfort, essentially.
Their own plausible deniability. Because what the Republicans who are against filibuster reform will say is almost the exact same thing that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin said about democracy reform. I support the bill, absolutely, but no, we shouldn't change the rules. That's what they'll say.
Yeah. And so it's not it's a little bit of a twisty situation because the filibuster is ridiculous and bad for democracy on the whole, and also in this moment we have working for us the fact that they continue to be pretty wedded to it.
Hey, Tim, I want to just jump in 1 second. We just jumped right into our Q&A with Leah and Ezra and didn't properly introduce Tim Wagner, who's on our core leadership team and is facilitating the Q&A. And Tim, if you have suggestions for people as to where they put their questions, just in the chat, we didn't address that either. We just jumped right in. So
yeah, they've been putting them in the Q&A, so it's
okay.
We've got a running list here.
Awesome.
Do we have time for one more?
Whatever you need,
yeah,
we're here. My mom's watching the kids, so we're good.
Okay. This came up from a couple of people. On a recent What's the Plan call, there was a conversation about getting some of the focus on ICE detention centers and warehouses.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Perfect. I'm going to let you go with that.
Oh, good. So we were very excited that we just last week hired on, and they haven't started yet, but they start this month, the director for immigrant defense work, who is going to be leading the campaigns on this. So it's been mainly a lack of capacity on our end that we haven't done more on this. We've been trying to highlight it, but we don't have an actual program that people can plug into. I think this is the tip of the spear in many ways for the fight against the mass deportation force and ICE. price. These are, as people know, these are concentrants that are either being purchased or constructed in order to house humans in terrible conditions. It is not just an immigration issue. This bridges the ideological divide in people who find this abhorrent and also people who don't want this in their backyard. Just people who might even be ideologically conservative who don't want a concentration camp 5 minutes away from where they live. So there is a big organizing opportunity, and it's all over. It's not just in a couple places, as y'all know. We can share the map, but if you look at the map, it's really in just about every state you can find one. And in some places, like all a large number of these and big opportunities to fight back. And I mentioned this on the maybe the What's the Plan when we were first talking about that even Marsha Blackburn, this super conservative senator from Tennessee, was forced to come out against these. It's just a demonstration of this isn't just the lefties are angry about this, but we're just going to get it done anyway. The Republicans understand that this is a political vulnerability for them, and so if you generate sufficient pressure, you can actually win. Now, I will say the regime also understands this is a vulnerability, and so they are going hard after protesters. And we saw this in Texas. We've seen this elsewhere. So I think we've got to be very smart about how we engage in strategic non-cooperation and non-violent protesting and organizing to do this work. But we know how to do that. Like that's what we do. We just got to be really smart about this particular campaign. But I think there's a big opportunity to pull more people into the movement by focusing on this because it's not some kind of high level political argument we're having. It's in your backyard. It's in your backyard. Do you want this?
Yeah, and Detention Watch Network has an excellent guide to some of the actual, like a lot of times this is going to be, it's a fight about getting people out, but it's also about like very specific siting and permitting and local ordinances. And so, which rapidly exceed our ability to explain in detail on a per state basis, but there is really good work going into how do we actually do this very locally all over the country.
And lucky for us, our number two at Indivisible National, Mary Small, came to us years ago from leading the advocacy work at Detention Watch Network. So we're very close with that team, and I think we're going to be able to do some good stuff here.
No, that's outstanding. We had two instances in the Twin Cities area during Metro surge of warehouses trying to be turned into detention centers. In fact, Stephen Seidel, one of our ITC members here, led the charge. And we saw hundreds of people turn out who had never done anything previously.
It's such a it's a good righteous fight that's also strategically smart to engage in, I think, for broadening our movement.
Cool. I'm going to turn it back to you to wrap up this portion, if I could.
Yeah. I want to leave you or allow you to leave us with parting words about what you're looking forward to, Leah and Ezra, next week with No Kings, not only in the Twin Cities. We know you'll be joining us. Really thrilled for that, and also just around the country. And what are your thoughts as we approach this last week leading up to No Kings? What would you like to leave us with?
Well, I'm super excited. I think, there's a lot that is powerful about a moment like this. I think one of the things that is perhaps most significant and most powerful is all the new dots that appear on the map every time, right? We are now over 3,000 events, which is a minimum of 300 places where somebody has put a new little organizing collective or a new potential little organizing collective on the map, which is part of how we grow, how we spread, how we show up in communities where people currently think nobody thinks the way they do. When they find out, oh wow, it turns out there's 50 people who agree with me. Let's keep this going. That is an incredibly powerful part of this, is the continued and ongoing engagement that people are able to do as a result of having come out for one big pushback. I also think that this is a really strange liminal moment in American politics, right? We have been in a war for the last 3 weeks that no one wants, that is causing horrific consequences and harm to civilians all across the Middle East, that is putting American soldiers in harm's way, and that is rapidly driving up prices for everyone here across the country. And we actually have a moment where we can collectively pull together the horrifying attacks and the illegal and unconstitutional harm that is being done via secret police at home, and the illegal and unconstitutional war that is being waged in our name around the country, and collectively push back and say, not in our name, none of this, we don't have a king. I think that is going to be a powerful message that we collectively are able to deliver. And I'm really excited.
One thing just to add on, agree with everything Leah said. I want to note the current conditions in the week leading up to this No Kings versus what we saw in the week leading up to No Kings 1 and No Kings 2. And I want to note it because I believe our opposition is learning and adapting. And so we should recognize that and adapt our own tactics. And the specific way they're learning and adapting is both for No Kings 1 and then especially for No Kings 2. They spent the couple weeks leading up yelling about how bad No Kings was, which then generated a lot of attention for No Kings, which then helped us boost No Kings, which then helped increase the impact of No Kings. If you'll note, I would challenge you to find
Hi.
one national Republican who has said anything about No Kings in the last week.
The word has gone out.
The
They
word
need to
has
hide.
the word has gone out to not say anything about it because then you will bring attention to it. So that is fine. The opposition is always going to adapt their tactics, but then that puts burden on us to say, okay, what do we need to do in order to fill in for the gap that is left by not having that earned media that is built up by Republicans attacking us? Which is why, look, I know we're talking to Guinness Book of World Records. We're going to have the most events on one day that's ever happened in American history, but we're not going to have the free publicity for those events coming from Republicans attacking us this time. It's up to us to fill them up, and it's also up to us to tell the story. And look, if we don't tell the story after March 28th, we will, you know how the news cycle goes. It will move directly on to what comes next. So I know that there's some discomfort in being like, rah, 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 we're so awesome. Look what we did. We hear that on even this call. What I would tell you, that's not self-indulgent. That's not a waste of time. That is super strategic. Because if we don't tell the story, they're going to tell a different story.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. And I think to that point, we know that the algorithms are not in our favor. We know that the other side is learning in terms of not giving us that free press. What we also know is that we've got an extraordinary number of people who have been activated and who have personal connections to folks who maybe haven't yet. So our ask collectively is find that person in your life who's maybe a little bit on the bubble about coming out to something like this and make a hard ask. Bring them out. We want to actually make sure that we are getting the word out and that we're pulling in new folks who maybe protest is not their thing normally, but they'll come out if somebody asks them and persistently enough.
Yeah, thank you. We know too that we're going to have a great event on Saturday. And
absolutely.
we have local speakers who are going to be and we're going to talk about this more in the rest of our meeting, but local speakers who were on the ground during Operation Metro Surge, all the way from local musicians who are part of the resistance that will be performing, as well as names like Jane Fonda, who you may have heard of, or Joan Baez and Maggie Rogers, who will be performing. So it is a great opportunity to bring in somebody who maybe has never been to an event like this before, too, because it will not only be informative in a way, storytelling, but it will be joyous and inspirational, and it'll be a moment or an event for healing too, is what we're hoping for on Saturday. Yeah.
Well,
So you are welcome,
Yeah.
Leah and Ezra, to stay for our entire meeting if you wish. But we also know that you have a Saturday to get to, so feel free to hang on if you want, or go and enjoy your kids and your Saturday. Either way.
We would love to say we should probably relieve my mom since she was on all yesterday. They didn't have school, but we will see y'all in a week.
We'll see you in a week.
We'll see you in a week. Thank you all. Really looking forward to it.
Bye,
Thank you so much.
Guys. Awesome. All right. We'll jump back into it here,
And you can
everybody.
take this spotlight off me, Jordan. I think, there you go.
Yep.
Thank you.
There we go. I am going to go back and share my screen, everybody, and we'll get started with the rest of it. That was outstanding. It's always great to have Ezra and Leah on to talk, I think. I always learn something new when they're on, so really appreciate them coming. All right, so I know I just sort of jumped into it when I saw that Leah was on and didn't want to take up too much of her time. But welcome, everybody. I'm Tim Wegener. I'm part of the Indivisible Twin Cities core leadership team. Thought we'd start out with something that I know everybody's seen, but I think it's still, it tells a great story about Minnesotans and what we did and what we're still doing, even as we speak. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about what everybody's been up to. Obviously, we had Leah and Ezra on already. We'll give you a lot of details about No Kings Twin Cities, which is coming up as we've been talking about here next week. And then we'll talk about our election work, which you heard already from Ezra and Leah, a little bit about what's happening at the national level, and in the fact that we're already thinking about it here and plugging into that, and we're going to be asking to plug all of you into that, and then we'll wrap up with Q&A. And we hope, as I look at this picture here on the screen, we just hope it's this nice next Saturday. All right, Indivisible Twin Cities. We want to tell this every time we talk with you. We are a nonviolent movement. We are all concerned, committed citizens. We are trying our best to dismantle authoritarianism. We want a functioning, healthy democracy, and we want a country where housing is affordable, healthcare is a guaranteed right, elections are fair, there's justice, and people are free. And this is one of the things that keeps me going every day. This is what I'm working towards. I know this is what all of you are working towards. And given our size, given our strength, this is what we're going to accomplish. For those of you that are new, just a little bit about how we're organized. Our co-leaders are Lisa and Rebecca, both of whom are on the call. You got to hear from Rebecca earlier. Bridget and myself were the other two members of the core team, along with Lisa and Rebecca. And then all of that feeds into a steering committee with 14 people from our action and rapid response teams. And that steering committee is really what guides Indivisible Twin Cities strategically and tactically. We get together either as a core team or as a steering committee every 2 weeks. And make sure that we're on the path that we all want to be on. That's my favorite part today, I think, besides having Leah and Ezra on. It's been a little more than 2 months since we all got together last time. I know it feels like 2 years or 2 decades, does to me. There's been a lot that we all have been up to. Obviously, we've taught the country, we've taught the world how to do something called neighboring. I love that word. Whether it's been rapid response, mutual aid, patrolling on your street corner, you guys have been unbelievable. And I think I saw it. I forget the line in the chat, but we're very active people. We're just very shy, but we do need to take note of all of the work that's been done. It's been simply incredible. During the middle of Metro Surge, Indivisible Twin Cities trained over 2,000 people to be constitutional observers. That put us into a network of a number that I've heard there were probably 70,000 or more constitutional observers trained in Minnesota during January and February. It's just incredible, again, what's happened. I saw in a note from Rebecca to Lisa a little bit about the Profiles in Courage Award that just happened. Lisa, did you want to jump in on that, or did you want me to continue?
No, I can jump in on that if you want me to, Tim.
Please.
Give you a little break here. So some of you may have already heard this, but I believe it was on Thursday. The John F. Kennedy Library Foundation announced the 2026 Profiles in Courage Awards, and the cities of Minneapolis, well, the Twin Cities was basically chosen to receive one of those awards. I believe this is the first time they've ever given this award to a community. It's kind of hard to say who gets to pick up the plaque. I don't know how that works. But anyway, we just wanted to point this out, that this is a very, very big deal. I know I've seen people posting on social media before this that, Twin Cities should be given the Nobel Peace Prize. And maybe that'll happen too. I don't know. But I think earlier, before this started, the JFK Library Foundation spoke to some of us in the organizing of the resistance to kind of talk to us about what happened here and how did it come about. And our message to them was that this was as grassroots as it gets. This was individual people standing up and saying, I need to do something. And whether that was organizing um, uh, watch groups and observer training, or even at the level of, say, Attorney General Ellison, where his office was filing lawsuits constantly related to the lawlessness of ICE, or whether it was the people who were gathering groceries and delivering them, or just standing on a street corner every single day holding a sign. It was all of that, every single bit of it. And I've said this a lot, I'm getting emotional, but it's there was a job for everybody, and whatever you could do, you did it. It didn't it could have been something like organizing a protest, but it also could have been something like just going and checking on your neighbors and making sure they were okay. And all of that was what brought us to the finally basically the end of Operation Metro Surge. But the other point that we made to the foundation was that this is not over. They're still here. They're still out. We saw just yesterday, I'm not even making this up, we saw a high-speed chase on 35E going north out of downtown St. Paul, and it was an ICE car chasing someone in a pickup truck. And it was obvious that was what was going on. So they're still here. They're still terrorizing our neighbors, and we need to still stay strong and keep doing all this work to make sure that we're protecting our neighbors. Back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, and I live in the East Metro, and they've been here in the East Metro too. Just to echo that, it is still happening. All right. Other things that you all did. We got trained for caucuses on February 3rd. We had a record turnout for caucuses. Almost 38,000 people turned out for caucuses. Here's some amazing statistics about the DFL caucuses, so the Democratic side of it, of that almost 38,000. Over half had never attended a caucus before. It tells you a lot. In addition, we had, let me remember the numbers here. 15% of caucus goers were registered independents, and 6% were Republicans. So that caucus night really tells you where the energy is and where people want to go. And you all were part of that as well. You went, you volunteered at it. That was awesome. You've been attending local conventions because I've been seeing it firsthand. And then we've been able to also keep up, the normal stuff. The I don't want to call it the everyday stuff, but certainly the stuff that happens on a regular basis. Action hours. We've seen huge attendance for those from all of you, and we've kept the book club going, and so lots of good things have been happening. Again, as I think we're trying to lead the way, all of us at Indivisible Twin Cities, trying to lead the way and building our community and showing what needs to be done and how to do it. And here's just some great pictures. Some of it, obviously is recent. Some of it was from last summer and fall. But the great thing about every one of these pictures and every one of these events, everybody's smiling. I think that's important too, to keep in mind that this is hard work. This is long work. It's going to take us a while, but there is joy in this work, and everybody finding the joy in the work, that's important too. So keep doing that. All right. I know there's a question in the Q&A or in the chat about No Kings Twin Cities. Next Saturday. And Rebecca, I know we're kind of jumping back and forth. Did you want to talk at all, or do you want me to run with this part?
You can run with it, Tim.
Awesome. All right, No Kings Twin Cities. National flagship event next Saturday at the state capitol. This will be the place to be. What's so cool about this is, even though this is the national flagship event, there's all sorts of indivisibles across the state of Minnesota are holding their own events. Many of them are happening in the morning so that they can come to this in the afternoon. We're expecting a great crowd, and Jordan from Indivisible Twin Cities has been catching some grief on our daily calls about being our weatherman, but he keeps telling us that it's going to be 50 degrees and decent. And so for end of March, we can't complain about 50 degrees and decent. All right, so this is one of the cool parts about this year's program. We are going to have 3 marches from 3 different locations that kick us off, and all 3 of those marches are going to meet at the state capitol. So we're going to have, if you want to walk a little bit less, you can come to St. Paul College or the Western Sculpture Garden. In both of those events, there'll be some music that starts in the 11 o'clock hour. There'll be a speaking program that starts at 12 noon sharp. And then at 12:15, those St. Paul College will start marching towards the Capitol. The folks at Western Sculpture Park are going to wait a little while. Their program's a little longer. And I'm not forgetting Harriet Island. Same thing. Music starts in the 11 o'clock hour. Speakers start right at noon. And then at 12:15, marchers from Harriet Island are going to make their way over to the Capitol. And then we're all going to come together for a main program that starts at 2 o'clock with a pre-program that starts at 1 o'clock. So if you want to just go straight to the state capitol, there's a program that starts at 1 o'clock. You can use that QR code for all of the information on the event. One of the things we heard from No Kings 1, as well as I think Hands Off, is we needed better sound, we needed better video. All of that's going to be there this time. We're going to have jumbotrons throughout the Capitol grounds, so you can see what's going on. We're going to have a much more enhanced sound system. There is ADA seating available on a first come first served basis, and we've got a great program lined up. You heard about some of it. Jane Fonda, Joan Baez, Maggie Rogers, Keith Ellison, Peggy Flanagan. I'm forgetting a whole lot of people, but it's going to be a great program and it's going to be a great event. And obviously, we hope everybody will be there. If you haven't already and you are able, I'll get to that in a second. Sorry. All right. We have some events. Oh, Rebecca, go ahead.
This is just a small thing because the previous slide said no food. But part of being this national flagship is that we are hearing from people who want to participate in ways that we would not have anticipated. So Ben and Jerry's is actually donating ice cream. So I don't know how this is going to work exactly, but there is going to be Ben and Jerry's ice cream, which is the exception to the no food rule. So,
Awesome.
which is really fun.
Well, and I also might just add in there, just because I don't want it to sound like you can't have food. Like if you come in and you've got something to snack on or a bottle of water, that is all just fine and dandy. But we're just saying that we won't have food. There won't be food trucks there, that type of thing.
So, in order to get excited, in order to get ready, we have a whole bunch of pre-events happening all this week, starting today, as a matter of fact. You see a lot of sips and sign making. And we've heard from everybody that, the Sips and Signs events are great, but historically they've only happened at breweries. And so now we've got some kid-friendly options as well, family-friendly options, including Monday at the Chicago Avenue Fine Arts Center, the Washburn Library on Tuesday, Wednesday at Big Animal Productions. These are great events. They're a great way to meet people and make your signs. And so if you have some time this week and you're interested in working together on sign ideas with all sorts of all your friends, these events are there. And all of these events are on our Indivisible Twin Cities Mobilize page. So you can go there to sign up if you would, so that we can get head counts. But we're excited about these. A lot of good work has been put into getting these all ready for you. Other events. This is pretty cool. They're in getting ready for the No Kings event nationally. Bridge brigades all over the country have put together this idea of having bridge brigades from the Canadian border to the Mexican border on Interstate 35. And that's happening this Thursday, March 26th from 4 to 5:30. You see here, Diamond Lake Road over 35W is a location where we're doing this. And so if you want to be part of, I don't even know how long 35E is, but it's got to be 1,500, 2,000 miles, or 35 is, it's long. So if you want to be part of a 1,500 to 2,000 mile event on Thursday evening, come on over to Diamond Lake Road over 35W and be part of the Bridge Brigade. What I was also getting at is if you haven't signed up to volunteer yet, but you're able to volunteer, please do. You can go to nokingstwincities.org is the website. And there you can sign up. You can see everybody that's endorsed. We've probably got over 80 organizations that have endorsed the event. It's unbelievable how many people have endorsed it. But you can go there and volunteer. There's a link to sign up to the form. Also, buses. If you need a bus or are interested in providing a bus, we've got room for bus parking. We've got room for folks who want to come in, from outside the metro and don't want to drive. It is going to be a big crowd, and one of the things we just found out yesterday is apparently the Minnesota DOT is going to shut down I-94 through downtown St. Paul next Saturday. Yay! I know. So public transportation, buses, that's going to be a great way to get there. I see the link to fundraise for the buses just been put in the chat. We are looking to fundraise for that and help people get to the event and not have to, pay a small fortune in order to make that happen. Lisa.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I don't want to interrupt the flow here too much, but if you are interested in organizing a bus, I don't know if that got put in the chat or not. So if you maybe live a little bit out in the suburbs or whatever, and you're interested in trying to organize a bus to come downtown, we would love for you to do that as well. And then Tim, can I talk a little bit about the march real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay. One thing that we haven't really said too much about this, and we'll probably say more as the week goes on, but if you are interested in marching as part of Indivisible, whether it's Indivisible Twin Cities or any of the other Indivisible groups across the state, we think it would be really cool if we could all try to march together with all of our banners interspersed together, but at the march. And so if you want to do that, this is not a hard and fast rule. This is completely voluntary. But if you'd like to march as a group with Indivisible groups, we are going to do that from St. Paul College. So we would say, get your group to St. Paul College, and then try to finagle your way up to the front. We are going to have a couple of flags that say Indivisible Twin Cities on them, and so holding them up so you can see them in the crowd, because usually it's really hard to see people. We're expecting a ton of people at all the march locations. So if you want to march as a group, as Indivisible, bring your banner and look for the Indivisible Twin Cities flags, and then everybody can kind of group together and march as a big group. And we think that would make a great statement coming down John Ireland Boulevard.
It's good. I'd love that view from the Capitol, watching the marchers come down John Ireland from the cathedral area. It's spectacular. All right, as we've been talking about transportation and the fact that I-94 was going to be closed, literally breaking news through the signal chats from the logistics and security team, and the DOT is considering pausing the bridge work for 4 hours next weekend during our event, which would be outstanding. So,
that doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna, like, there's bridge work and then there's closing the freeway work. So let's not be too optimistic just yet.
I hear you, Jordan, loud and clear. Hopefully this will make it a little bit better. All right. And at the end of all of this, we're going to do Q&A. So if there's questions about No Kings and all the events on Saturday, we'll have some time at the end here to talk about that as well. All right. The second topic we wanted to get into with everybody today is election defense in 2026. Obviously, it's a huge concern for all of us. You heard Ezra and Leah talk about it. There's been a ton of questions. Every time we get together with folks, everybody's asking that same question. What are we going to do? So we've had some phone calls and some meetings with other local groups, and we're going to continue to do that because all of the local organizations, whether it's activist groups or IDN or Indivisibles, we all see what's happening, and we all understand the need to work together on this, and so that work is being done right now. We're thinking about this in three ways. There's three tiers to this work that has to happen. Tier one is the work that has to happen leading up to election season. And you see the dates there. Early voting for the primary starts in June, late June. And early voting for the general is in September. So, we have to use this time, really between now and the end of summer to get trainings done, to get everybody aligned, to get the pieces in place so that we're ready to go to protect the polling places, to protect voters, and to be ready for anything that happens even after the vote, in November. So, there's going to be work that has to happen during early voting. There's going to be work that has to happen on election day. And then we're going to have to be ready to go to be in the streets if they try to nullify election results, whether it's here or elsewhere. Lisa, do you have your hand up? Oh, I saw the hand. Sorry. All right, so that's how we're thinking of it from a big picture. What's going to be needed? Here's some things that we're thinking about already. We trained over 2,000 constitutional observers. We were part of a group of organizations that trained over 70,000 constitutional observers. We need to turn these people into poll protectors. And poll protection, I think, can be a lot of fun. I think we could turn it into a community event at each polling place. I think it should be a day of joy. But I think we're going to need people there to bear witness and to provide security, not security in the sense of obstructing federal officers, but security in the minds of voters, that it's safe and and that they should come out to vote. We saw all sorts of stories of strength during the caucus night. And I'm going to share one with you real quick, but this is the environment we want to create again. On caucus night, we got a report from one of our Twin Cities caucus sites. There was a young lady who showed up scared out of her mind, but came anyway. Because remember, caucuses were February 3rd. She had not left her house in 3 weeks at that point. But it was too important for her to miss. And so she came to caucuses that night with her passport around her neck. And she was welcomed and, made to feel safe, and everything was great. Here's the best part of that. She left that caucus site that night as her precinct chair, which gets me every time. Sorry. That's the environment we're going to create. We're going to create the environment where people feel like, you know what, I can be there. And so it's going to require some updated training. We're going to have to, make sure we all understand what the laws are here in Minnesota, how far away from a polling place we have to be, all that stuff. But we're going to do that, and we're going to partner, like I said, with other organizations. And we're going to make sure that this election in Minnesota is done fairly. And yep, Linda, you're right. I mean, that's part of the training is, the distance from the polling places, I think, is 100 feet. But, we're going to do that, and we're going to make sure that everybody feels safe. All right, some upcoming events, in addition to everything else that's going on. And again, you can go to the Indivisible Twin Cities Mobilize page to check out all of our events. The legislature is meeting right now. It's a tied House and a one-vote Senate for Democrats, and the legislative process can be confusing for folks, and so we try to make it real easy. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, Activism 101 on March 31st is a great place to come. And then this Monday, there is a Reproductive Freedom Rally Day with Unrestrict Minnesota. And if that's something that you're able to attend, I'd encourage you to be there this Monday. But again, all events are on Mobilize, and you see the link there. But if you just go to Google and type in Mobilize Indivisible Twin Cities, you'll find our Mobilize page. Before we get into questions, I love quotes. I love inspirational quotes. So I wanted to leave everybody with these two things. When Margaret Mead was talking about a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens, she was talking about us. It doesn't take 100 million people. Take 10 million people. Might only take 15 million people. It might only take 151 on this call. Never doubt we can make the change that we want to see. And then the second one, I hope everybody got to see this because it was on Facebook, it was on Instagram, I saw it a number of times. But the night of or the day after Alex Preddy was murdered, this is what folks in Boston were doing and saying at the Boston Common. And I think we should embrace that. I think we should embrace that position that we are looked upon as leaders in this country right now. And I think this coming Saturday, we're going to get a chance to reinforce that with everybody. All right, Q&A. If you've got questions, what I'm going to do, and they don't know that, I'm going to spotlight Rebecca and Lisa and add them here. I know, sorry, Lisa. And Sarah or Jordan or Shay, if you can, let's see, I'm just going through the Q&A here. If you could kind of pump them back to the beginning here. Okay, how long will the program be on Saturday? Just thinking about bus pickup.
That's a great question. I cannot even stress enough to anybody who's never done it, but planning the program for one of these massive events is probably one of the hardest things that a person can do. Everybody gets mad at you because you don't put the speaker in they like, and other people get mad because you've got too many of one thing. Anyway, it goes on and on and on. So one of our goals as we've been planning this program, it was to keep it relatively manageable time-wise, because we know that after a while people are like, I've been standing here for an hour and I keep hearing just people coming up and speaking. But this is a big event and it's got a lot of people who need to have a voice in it. So while we've tried to keep it at an hour, it will definitely be longer than an hour. So as we've said earlier, at 1 o'clock, we're going to kick off what we're calling our pre-program. That is going to be music. We're going to be focusing local Twin Cities musicians. They're awesome. Every single one of them is worthy of their own concert. So that starts at 1. Our program will start exactly at 2 o'clock. And as of right now, the plan is to go, the speaker portion of it to go till 3 o'clock, a little after 3 o'clock. And then that is when we will highlight Joan Baez and Maggie Rogers, and they're going to do a couple of songs. So we would like for it to be over at 3:30. I think that if you're on a bus especially, you should plan to maybe not have your bus leave until maybe 4:30. And I say that because there's going to be so many people there that just moving around within the crowd is really hard and really difficult. And so it's going to take you a long time to get from one point to another point. So just keep that in mind as you're planning your travel, that just moving around on the Capitol grounds is going to be hard because there are going to be so many people there. So that's about the best answer I can give you at this point. I don't know, Rebecca, if you've got more words of wisdom there.
No, I think you captured it, Lisa.
Okay.
Just rolling through. Well,
The
let's just.
The only other thing I would add, since we're Um, if you plan to go to one of the March locations, just to reiterate, those um, two, as people are gathering, there will be local musicians playing starting at around 11 o'clock at each of the March locations. We're really proud of the and happy about the way that has come together because um, these local musicians we've lined up, they're part of the resistance too, and we believe that art and music and writing and poetry are all part of this big movement that we're trying to build here. So just know that if you arrive early to any one of the places, you will be um, entertained with music from local musicians. At the marches, the speaker portion starts promptly at noon and will go 15 minutes. So if you are marching, regardless of the location, and we, as Lisa said, we encourage you to go to St. Paul College if you want to march with other Indivisible people, groups. Um, those marches will kick off promptly at 12:15.
All right. There's a bunch of logistical questions about No Kings next week that I'm gonna package into one and then let you guys talk about. So there's that questions about recording the event, accessibility accommodations, how do you organize bus transport, and then rules on flags. So I'll stop bringing flags, stuff like that. So if you could just kind of give everybody the refresher again.
What was the first thing you said, Tim?
The first thing was, will it be recorded?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, it's going to be live streamed. The live stream at the Capitol will start at 1 o'clock when the pre-program starts and go through the duration, and it's going to be live streamed by Midas Touch. So anybody pretty much anywhere will be able to watch it. And then it'll obviously be out there later for you to watch again if you want to see it again.
Accessibility accommodations.
There is accessible seating at the Capitol that will be available on a first come, first serve basis. So I would recommend that you get there early if you want to get one of those spots. Early as in, 12:30 or so probably. Um,
Hey,
it's
Jordan,
hard. Oh, sorry.
I was going to ask Jordan, do you
Okay.
know how many accessible seats there are going to be? I forgot.
I believe it's around 300.
Okay.
First come, first serve. And and keep monitoring the No Kings Twin Cities website for updates as we get them. There will be parking updates this week. Yeah. And program changes, all kinds of stuff. So the website, nokingstwincities.org is where source of truth.
Yep.
And also on the accessible seating section, there is a drop-off point on Cedar as you're kind of coming down that hill from University. There's a little pull-off there. And so if you have someone that you need, or if you are someone who needs to be dropped off, so that you can get to the accessible seating, that's where it will be. And I think there's a map on the website too, isn't there, Jordan, that shows all these things? Or there will be at some
Not
point.
yet, but I think there will be.
How do you organize bus transport in your area? Where do you start?
I think we're directing people to Larry Weiss.
Let me go get a good email
Okay.
to get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also a form that you have to fill out to kind of get the ball rolling on organizing a bus. So if we have a link to that, there's Larry.
Larry's on.
Larry's here.
Oh.
Actually, it's Jen Newberg who is handling the buses, but there is a bus interest form. Does anybody have that handy that they could throw into the chat?
I'll find it and put it in the chat.
Okay,
and it's also on the website, and there's also going to be a link to it, I think, in our newsletter that'll come out on Monday. But yeah, the sooner you get working on that, the better. So we'll get the link for you.
I mean, and it's a great option. We even know that there's a bus coming from Northeast Minneapolis, which isn't very far, but it's a really smart thing to do. Because we're trying, parking is going to be a challenge as always. So, any ways that you can figure out to reduce the number of cars at the Capitol or near it or St. Paul College is advisable. So that includes public transportation, um, carpooling, of course, buses, whatever you can come up with.
Can you remind everybody the rules on signs and sticks and American flags and flagpoles, things like that?
Um, Lisa, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take it. So basically the rule of thumb is we don't want anything that can be used as a weapon. However, we understand that people like to carry flags, they like to put their signs on a stick. The rules really apply more if you're trying to go into the Capitol building, which we will not be doing on the 28th. So we're basically just saying, please use your best judgment and be careful with your sticks and your flags or whatever.
During the marches from the sites to the Capitol, are people leading songs and chanting?
Yes. Yes. In fact, there are chanters lined up, both that will be marching and that will be the march from Harriet Island to the Capitol. There will be led by a sound truck. There will be chanters on that. There will be if the weather holds, there will be an antique red fire truck that will be leading the march from St. Paul College, and there will be drummers or chanters on that truck, and then interspersed throughout the marches. Yes.
Just
And I think they're looking for chanters. So if you're an experienced chanter, um, you know, uh, let us know if that's something that you would want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, they could probably just email us at the info@indivisibletwincities.org.
Yep, that would work, and then we'll just connect them to the people in charge of chanters. Yep.
Do we know if that option is on the volunteer form?
I don't know if it is off the top of my head. I know they were doing chanter training, but I think that was yesterday, so might have
Yeah,
missed
I
that
think it was.
opportunity. But yep. I
Rolling through.
want to step
Okay.
in for a moment because one of the questions I saw in the chat prompted me to think about this. So this event, just to restate, is being organized by there is a local coalition called the that we call the No Kings Coalition. It's the groups that have organized the other large events in the Twin Cities. And that coalition is Indivisible Twin Cities, Minnesota 5051, Women's March Minnesota, and the AFL-CIO of Minnesota, the Union of Unions. And for this event in particular, we added to our organizing partners the Immigrant Defense Network and um, RISE,
Rising Islamic Sisterhood.
Reviving Islamic Sisterhood. So those are the local groups that are organizing No Kings on Saturday. Because this is the flagship event, we're also working with national groups in coalition and in collaboration to put this event on. And those include Indivisible at the national level, um, and 5051 and Move On and Public Citizen and ACLU and others. So that's kind of how this is all coming together. Um, just wanted to mention that.
And now I would like to jump in, Tim,
Please do.
because this is hot off the presses. It literally just dropped in Signal right this minute. We have another confirmed speaker, and it has been announced that Bernie Sanders will be joining us next Saturday.
Ooh.
I don't know how people feel about that, but as Rebecca was saying, this is also a national event. So there you have it.
Yeah, and it is interesting because there is a an emphasis um, that we haven't really um, had to deal with so much before, and that is the world will be watching. The reason that we are the flagship event is because what has happened in the Twin Cities over the last few months. And so that's why the Twin Cities was chosen. And so there's this balance actually between um, local speakers who can tell the stories of what happened here and what is happening here in the Twin Cities, and national speakers who can also kind of help connect the dots or tell the big picture stories or inspire the crowd or even bring national and worldwide attention. So as we've been crafting the program, those have been some of the considerations that we as local organizers of past events really haven't, had to consider that much.
I'm rolling through to see if there's more No Kings questions. I know I recognize that there's been some questions as well about the election mobilization, and what I'm going to suggest is we're going to be dedicating future meetings to that. And we may want to just save those questions for the next time. But just know that we are on it, and that we are going to be part of a much larger group that has a plan, has multiple plans, and just know that this is all going to be happening. So, um, not seeing other No Kings related questions, guys. So,
Anything else that we need to cover?
Jordan, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like for the merch question, I think is that just an info at Indivisible Twin Cities email, or I think that's where we're just kind of taking ad hoc requests for merch from that. Bridget's not on, so I don't. Bridget usually has a line on where we're at with merch.
I think you're right. Email info@indivisibletwincities.org, please, and we'll get you merchandise. Merch is merchandise. So,
And
Indivisible Twin Cities hats, t-shirts.
as far as transit goes, Metro Transit is aware of the scale of our event, and um I don't have official word that there's going to be more trains, but last time for No Kings 1, they added increased capacity, so I anticipate similar for No Kings 3. And especially also considering that 94 is going to get shut down, we will want the metro will need more trains to address that.
So,
Can
oh,
I,
go ahead.
yeah, just 1 minute. I thought of something, another question kind of prompted this, but I think it's worth giving uh everybody a preview maybe into what's next after No Kings, in addition to what we've been talking about with election defense. And so um, during the event, Leah and Ezra are going to be on the stage along with other National Coalition leaders. And their specific topic is a call to action to all the people present at the Capitol and around the country. Because protests, we all know that protests are part of the toolkit. But one of the things that we really want to emphasize, and we want it to be emphasized from the stage, is that everybody who attends a protest, whether it's in St. Paul or around the state or around the country, needs to find a place, needs to find their purpose and their place in this resistance movement. because that is how we build it. It has to be sustained. We say this all the time. Sustained over time, building over time. So one of the things that they're going to be talking about, Leah and Ezra, that is just to everybody, if you're already in a local group, um, stick with it and remember, and even in the Twin Cities, kind of the hyper local organizing that enabled us to push back against ICE, that needs to continue because it's through neighborhood groups or indivisible chapters or whatever that we are continuing to push back and eventually get ourselves out of the position that we are in. So so find a group, whether it's an indivisible chapter or otherwise, that you can feel a part of and be committed to over time. That is the main call to action that will be coming out of No Kings. And then they're going to be including also at the national level toolkits for our next phases, which include safeguarding our elections, which we're already starting to think about. But one of the things we also want to do at the event and just within Indivisible Twin Cities is you may remember or recall the Pledge of Resistance that we had people sign up in, like, I think it was last fall. Larry will remember for sure when that was. And it was a way to get people to think about turning out in the event that mass mobilization would be needed. And when we first had this idea, it was around the National Guard maybe coming to Minnesota, because Trump was going to invoke the Insurrection Act. Well, it turned out to be somewhat different than that. Instead, it was ICE occupying our cities. But we also know that as Tim talked about and as Leah and Ezra talked about, we have to be prepared in the event that the Trump administration pulls some shenanigans around our elections. And so one of our other calls to action will be getting people to pledge to turn out again, if necessary, in the event that there is a real threat to the election. So I just wanted to kind of tee that up because you all know this. We go to protests because they provide us, some inspiration and some community and solidarity with our neighbors in our community. But the work has to continue beyond that, of course. So
If you're interested to follow up on that, I've put up on the screen, how you can reach out to us. You can always come to our website, indivisibletwincities.org. The more the better. We love everything you guys are doing. We know everybody's doing a lot. But if you can bring someone else into this movement, so much the better. So and this is where you can find us online, everybody. Please connect with us. Again, Leah talked about the algorithm is not our friend, but the more we network, the more we connect, the more we share all of our stuff together, the more we influence that algorithm, and the more we get our message out. So that's the end of the presentation. I'm going to let Rebecca and Lisa take us out.
I think I'll turn it over to Lisa because I just gave a big long speech.
Well, I am not going to give a big long speech. I'm just going to say thank you to everybody who came and joined us this morning on a beautiful Saturday. And I want everybody to just go out and soak up this beautiful weather while you've got the chance. So, and thank you for coming. And we're going to see everybody next Saturday, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. So get your signs ready, and we'll see you Saturday. Bye.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you, Tim. Great
Thanks,
job.
Tim. Yeah, and Jordan, thank you.
Jay
And
and
Keith,
everybody.
thank you.
Tamar, thanks.
Sarah. I'll stop recording.